Good morning, good afternoon, and or evening, and welcome back to the Den, and back to another A Dirty Casual Tries video. Wait, but more cat, this isn't Marvel Rivals. What is this weirdness? Well, I'm taking the A Dirty Casual Tries series out to Battlefield. I've been excited for it. I have been anticipating another Battlefield in the postmodern type era, which is where we're going to be having this one, and I have also been excited to get back into my tanks, planes, and choppers. But what did I think of my time with the Battlefield 6 beta? Did I get to play a lot? Did I get to play a little? Was I happy with how things shook out? Let's find out. Just to start out with some technical stuff, I had no issues with Battlefield 6 in terms of performance, at least no major issues in terms of performance. Had a little bit of issues with the whole secure boot and getting that to register, but once I was past that, things seemed to run pretty much buttery smooth throughout the game. Looked great, sounded wonderful. The only consistent performance issue that I had was a bit of stuttering. And I mean like stuttering throughout the entire little cutscene once you skip past the briefing and you're kind of zooming in on your character once you select him and you're doing the whole rotate around into him and bringing up your gun at the start of the fight right before you deploy. Heavy stuttering throughout there. Other than that, the only bit of stuttering that I had was when I would be in a building and the floor would get blown out from underneath me, or the chunk of the building that I was in would get blown off and would crumble down to the ground. Then I would also experience some stuttering, but it wasn't anywhere near as heavy as it was in the little animation cutscene thing right after the briefing. Other than that, no major performance issues. Well, no major performance issues on my end, but we'll get to that. Now, just to give a little bit of history for Battlefield with me, I played the Battlefield Bad Company 2 campaign, never played any multiplayer, played Battlefield 3 heavily. That's the Battlefield I've played the absolute most of. Played every DLC, did a whole bunch of the premium stuff, not quite all of it. Got a lot of the achievements, not quite all of them. Played the campaign multiple times. I loved Battlefield 3. Battlefield 4, well, I liked it. I loved it. Yeah, we'll say I loved it, but I didn't love it as much as I loved Battlefield 3. Things started to go kind of gimmicky in Battlefield 4, and they kind of opened up the weapon system a little bit. Now, I'll get more to that later on, but they also kind of started to change up classes a little bit, which I'll also get to a little bit later on. But the big thing was the gimmicky stuff. Now, the Levolution on some levels was absolutely awesome. It was superb. Really changed things up, really changed the flow of combat. Loved it. Didn't play all the DLCs, didn't do anywhere near as much playtime as I did with Battlefield 3, but I still played Battlefield 4 a lot. Then, in Battlefield 1, just really wasn't vibing with the whole World War I aesthetic, didn't like how the weapon system was. Also wasn't very happy with tanks right at the start of the game, and I'm a big tank guy, and I kind of fell off Battlefield. Now, this Dirty Casual is coming back to the Battlefield 6 beta. And the beta, well, I mean, I'd have to say it was pretty successful overall. That I didn't hear of any like huge issues where, the game or servers or something was down. Heard various things about the whole secure boot thing, but it happened across 2 different weekends. I didn't get to play in the first weekend. I played in the second weekend, and I didn't get to play as much as I wanted to because I took a little ill at the start of the weekend, but I did get a few hours in each Saturday and Sunday. And well, overall, I had fun. I liked what I played at Battlefield 6. Now, let's talk a little bit more about the classes, though. I don't fully understand why ammo and health is on support. I can understand wanting to, make the support character the person that does the heals. Also giving them the ability to do ammo kind of limited things a little bit. It doesn't seem like it gives you all the different kinds of ammo back, mainly just like bullets and ammunition, maybe occasionally a grenade, but having everything limited to the one character meant pretty much mainly what I saw playing was support. Now, I can understand wanting to change things up, you know, they're looking at moving the spawn beacon over to the assault class, and I can understand that. They're the one that's going to be pushing up. That's where you're going to be wanting to spawn in the action, getting in the thick of it, pushing that front line, PTFO. But, you know, putting all of the medic stuff also on the support class, I feel kind of nerfed a little bit of the variety you could get from the support class. Now, I mainly did play support, right? It had the med pack, so I mainly played support throughout the beta. So I didn't really experience the whole adrenaline shot thing, and of course there's a lot of other attachments that weren't in the beta that are going to be in the game for the assault class that might change my mind, and I might end up liking that a lot too. But for the most part, well, actually I think engineer is the same, and recon for the most part is the same. In the beta, had the spawn beacon, hasn't been moved yet to the assault class, but DICE said they're looking at it, so we'll have to see how that plays out when the game comes out. But overall, playing a little bit of engineer, playing like a couple of lives on recon, not playing any support, or not support, but not playing any lives on the assault class at all, mainly playing support. Classes felt pretty good still. The change up to grenades in the kit, I mean, I'm hoping there's more variety in the main game, and there's not going to be certain grenades that are locked on to certain classes, because not everybody was able to use the smoke grenade, and I think assault was the only one that had flashbang, so I do hope that's not limited as well. I hope that is, you know, anybody can use any kind of grenade, preferably when the game comes out. But for the mix that they had in the beta, things felt okay, right? At least for my playtime. Now, it's going to take a little bit of getting used to Battlefield recoil again, because, you know, you don't have anywhere near as much recoil in other games as you do in Battlefield, which kind of goes into the realism sim part. But outside of having to get used to that again, and just kind of having to keep in mind I do need to compensate now, guns felt good. SMGs felt like they were able to engage at short and medium range as well. When you started stretching out to the longer ranges is when you started, you know, experiencing a lot of inconsistencies. Assault rifles felt pretty good all around. I didn't play any with carbines. The bolt action felt pretty good, right? The sniper glare. What the hell is DICE doing with that sniper glare? Like, Lord almighty. It was visible before. Now it's just like, here's a sun on the end of my sniper scope. I don't know. That sniper glint needs to be reduced a wee bit, right? It needs to be reduced a wee bit for those snipers. But sniping felt pretty good with the bolt action. I did play one life with the DMR, and oh my god, that thing felt terrible. I think it was the EMR, the EBR. Lord, that thing felt terrible. I hope not all DMRs feel that way. But LMG, the one LMG I played with, the first LMG, it felt good. All the weapons felt pretty good, right? They felt like they should. LMG was a little bit slower to ADS, had a bit more recoil, you know, but more rounds. The assault rifle felt like a pretty good, you know, all-arounder type weapon. The SMG felt really good, especially in close quarters. I didn't play any with shotguns. Just now thinking about that, I didn't play any with shotguns. So I can't really talk a whole lot about shotguns at all, pretty much. But from how I got killed with it at various ranges, I think shotguns are doing pretty good, at least in the beta. I am not a fan of a completely open weapon system, right? I mean, Battlefield 4 seemed open enough. You had the ability to use carbines, shotguns, and DMRs on any class. I would personally prefer, because they're gonna do an open thing, right? I would prefer Battlefield 4's weapon system only tailored after Battlefield 3. That way you have assault rifles on assault class, you have carbines on the engineer class, you have bolt actions on the sniper class, and you have LMGs on the support class. Then any class would be able to use SMGs, shotguns, and DMRs, which, if you're gonna do a more open weapon system, that would be the way I would prefer to see it. In my opinion, that would be the best way to do it. But in Battlefield 6's beta, the weapon system was completely open. And yeah, saw a lot of assault rifles and a lot of carbines, I didn't really see snipers on other classes. I still mainly saw snipers on the recon class. Now, maybe because of that huge sniper glare I was just talking about, I wasn't able really to get a good look at them and what class they were using, because there's just a sun on my screen. But yeah, I felt like I mainly came across support classes using either LMGs or ARs, or ARs carbines. Now, that right there is definitely something that I think is more bad for Battlefield, right? I don't think Battlefield works with a completely open weapon system. You're building to a class. You're not building a custom kit. So I would prefer to see some restrictions within the weapon system. Again, if you were to make SMGs, shotguns, and DMRs open to everybody, I think that would be probably the best solution. That way there is restriction. You don't have things like carbines and assault rifles open to any class. And also provide some class identity to kind of go into play with how that class is built, like a sniper. Now, I didn't get to play too much with vehicles, so I'm also not really going to talk about vehicles. I did get to do some shooting in an LMG turret, and I did get to play one life driving the tank. I didn't get to do any flying in choppers or jets. Every time I spawned, it seemed like the jet was already taken or the chopper was already taken. Anytime I'd go to spawn on him, or I'd try to sit there and wait the little bit that I did that, I kept getting beat out. So I didn't really get to play much with any of the vehicles. I can say that fighting against vehicles feels like maybe the RPG and other kinds of explosives have kind of been toned back a little bit against vehicles. That, or just every time I fought a vehicle, they had multiple people repairing it, in which case, awesome job on the repair tool. But outside of that, yeah, don't really have much to say with vehicles. I will say a little bit of something about the LMG turret, and this kind of plays into time to kill versus time to die. Time to kill being mathematical. Each player has so much health. Each bullet does so much damage within a certain range from a certain gun. So mathematically, the time to kill a soldier with X weapon is blank number of bullets, or blank, partials of a second. Time to die, though, is an experiential thing. And I heard a lot of complaints from other content creators and other people playing, even my own buddies. I experienced this as well. The age-old issue of Battlefield, where you put like an entire clip into them and they just eat it. They put 2 bullets into you and you're burned down dead on the ground, somehow unable to be revived because, their SMG registered as sniper bullets in your head. There was just so much damage, right? But that comes down to an issue that I've experienced before in Battlefield 4 and in Battlefield 3. DICE was then, and DICE might still be, and as far as I've ever known for this foreseeable future, DICE will always be pretty dog shit with their net coding. Can't tell you how many times I died around corners, completely in cover. The person was on the other side of the building or the wall. No way they could have shot me, but I died. I got killed by their bullets. And that's not a lag issue, that's not a ping issue, that's a net coding issue, especially with how consistent it's been for DICE. I did experience some of this in the Battlefield 6 beta. Things seemed mostly stable. In 90% of all my engagements, I felt like I would get burned down at the same rate I could burn them down, right? It just came down to who got the drop on who hit more headshots, who shot first, or in my dirty casual case, who was a better shot. But overall, that's kind of where that whole difference in time to kill versus time to die comes in, right? Time to kill being mathematical, time to death being experiential, and yeah, DICE still ain't resolved those issues just yet. Fortunately, I did not experience any dying around corners, so maybe it's been improved in some areas, and just because we were playing the beta and it was an older build, Things might not have been tuned up as much as the real game will be when it launches here in a couple months, but yeah. Yeah, netcoding's still pretty bad, but fortunately it was not prevalent throughout the game, it was just prevalent in certain situations. Using the RPG against infantry, it seemed pretty weak. It seemed like the frag grenade did more damage than the RPG did. Now, I'm a firm believer in that, a direct shot with an RPG on an infantry person should kill them. Should you be able to burn them down with splash damage? Yeah, sure, if they're weak, or if you get splash damage on them multiple times and they're not getting healed, sure. But definitely with a direct shot, you should be getting a kill with an RPG. And there were multiple times that I'd be shooting the RPG at a tank, there's some infantry around him, and I would sink multiple RPGs into the same tank or group of infantry around a tank, and I'd be getting, damage registered on the tank. The infantry seemed pretty inconsistent though. I don't know if that's maybe a hitbox thing with the tank. I would imagine after at least 2 RPGs, any med packs that are down on the ground are going to be destroyed. Maybe they aren't, but it was probably the worst feeling out of all of the combat, was fighting infantry with like an RPG and explosives similar to that. Now in that machine gun turret, there's a bit of inconsistencies as well. Again, it seemed like some people that, I could only assume were at full health were getting burned down pretty quick, and then other times it was taking an unusual amount of bullets to take them out. But, that's also kind of to be expected with a dice game. Now, one thing I will say, since we're talking about machine gun turret vehicles, whenever you're going to exit a vehicle, why do we constantly spawn in front of it, dice? Why? That is so terrible. We're spawning in the line of fire of most likely another enemy vehicle. Now, I want to say it was in Battlefield 4, if say I looked to the left side of the tank and then I pressed exit, I would exit on the left side of the tank. I want to say that started in Battlefield 4. I could be wrong, please don't quote me, but that's when I want to say it started. We should have something like that. Like we should be able to kind of pick a spot by looking in a direction to be able to exit the vehicle kind of where we want to, so if we need to, we can use the vehicle's blast shot that it can take us a bit of cover as we run away. That, or we should just be exiting out the back, right? We should just be popping out behind the vehicle. That way, at the very least, some way, somehow, some manner, fashion, or form, we shouldn't be spawning out in front of the vehicle when we exit it and getting burned down almost immediately by enemy gunfire. That should just not be a thing. I even noticed this when enemy players would exit vehicles before they got destroyed. They would always seem to pop out in front of the vehicle. Maybe that's a thing in the beta and it's not going to be a thing in the game. I hope not, but yeah, that is terrible. Another gripe I want to get in is on spawns, right? Whenever you spawn on an objective in Battlefield, traditionally, you spawn within an area around the objective. You don't necessarily spawn like right on the flag. But it's a bit more extreme in Battlefield 6. There are multiple times where it's like, okay, I'm going to spawn on this objective, which is inside a building, and I'm spawning on the street outside of the building and 1 floor down from the objective flag. I'm a good 50 meters at that point away from the objective. Like, I'm going to take multiple seconds to get to the objective. It's even going to take me more than a second or two to get into the objective area. I hope that's not that way in the main game, because that was pretty terrible. Now, sometimes you'd spawn up in the building on the floor with the objective flag. Sometimes you'd spawn the floor below in the building. Sometimes you'd spawn pretty close. But there were times that you could spawn pretty darn far away for an initial spawn on an objective. I really hope they kind of tighten that up and shrink that spawn area up, because being able to be spawned outside of a building when you're expecting to spawn on an objective in a building, and then you're outside in the street and immediately getting gunned down by gunfire because you got spawned up in the middle of a gunfight. That happened more than once, and it was all on the same map, which I think was the Brooklyn one, the Liberty City one. Liberty City. But yes, the New York map. That's where that happened pretty much. Actually, that's the only map that happened on. So yeah, I would definitely reevaluate those spawns, try to shrink them up, because people shouldn't be getting spawned outside of buildings when the objective's in a building. in the middle of a gunfight. Yeah, that should just not be happening. And if this was a game that had like set spawn points, so players were always spawning like the exact same geographical coordinate location, I could understand at that point getting burned down as soon as you spawn because people can memorize the spawns, but for something that's spawning you randomly, you shouldn't have the ability to get spawned in a gunfight. Now, if they're invading the building, they're attacking the objective, you might get spawned in the middle of gunfire. It's gonna happen. It's just the way it is. But out in the middle of a street, pretty darn far away from the objective, like that should not be happening at all. And that would prevent being able to get spawned up in the middle of a gunfight. And spawns were probably the worst part of the entirety of the experience for me. And I'm not talking about spawning up on squad mates because, that comes to, you paying attention to the map and the little screen. If they just got out of combat and you're seeing some orange markers on the map, might not necessarily be the best time to spawn up on that teammate. So, that just comes down to, the player's awareness. But for random spawns on objectives, that was, that and exiting out of vehicles and like seemingly always popping out in front of the vehicle no matter which direction I was looking, that was the worst part of the Battlefield beta for me. So, what did I think of everything overall? Well, I had fun, as I said before. I really enjoyed my time in the Battlefield 6 beta, all things considered. There was a lot more positives than there were negatives. There were some negatives that I was expecting, and there were some negatives that I was not expecting. The one big concern that I have walking away from the Battlefield 6 beta is over Battlefield's identity. I know, hot topic. I'm not really a Battlefield content creator, so why do my thoughts matter? Well, Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, again, were my favorite games of Battlefield. And things were a bit slower there. Of course, older systems, tech was older, things weren't as advanced as they are now, games weren't as big as they are now, player, team size wasn't as big as they are now, a whole lot of things. But I tend to favor the more medium-sized maps and the larger-sized maps, right? And with this whole kind of designing the map so it's almost like any objective can shoot at and attack any other objective with ease, the change-ups to the class system, the change-up to the weapon system where it's completely open now. They've also talked about, well, hey, we might have SBMM in here. And Battlefield, at least in my experience traditionally, is you get in the lobby, you get in, and if they're better than you, well, as the kids would say, time to get good, scrub. Yeah, you had to learn. You had to get better. You had to learn from how the other team was beating you so bad, and that would help you learn to beat other teams that way, right? It was just the nature of Battlefield. Also, I haven't heard personally any firm confirmation on if server browsers are going to be available for the entire game. I know they're going to be in the portal, but if they're going to be available for all the other game modes and for just, general player running servers in general, I don't like that being taken out. That's part of the identity of Battlefield, right? And with a quicker time to kill on average from everything that I experienced, and for this whole, we're going to be incorporating a lot of more movement. Movement seems quicker. Players are a whole lot more agile than they used to be. Of course, this comes with, technology and things getting updated as well. But all of that combined, along with smaller maps, less of the medium and larger size maps, more infantry-focused combat and gameplay, that's just not the Battlefield I know from Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Now, yes, there were smaller maps. There was infantry-focused stuff in Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. But the Total War, the bigger maps, incorporating the air vehicles, the land vehicles, and even in Battlefield 4, sea vehicles, it was all part of the experience, right? It was all part of Battlefield. And I didn't really get that impression from the Battlefield 6 beta. Of course, they were intentionally showing us smaller stuff in the beta. Maybe that was by design. Maybe we are going to be getting more stuff, and maybe some of the map rumors about everything being a small map is not going to pan out. Maybe across the course of expansions and DLCs or seasons, what else they're doing. I hope to God we don't go to like a battle pass crap like Call of Duty does. Yeah, all of that combined together. Plus, they've been looking at trying their hand at a BR again. Didn't exactly work out for them the last time, but they're looking at trying it again. And I am concerned that that move away from Battlefield's core identity, from what it's been traditionally, slower, more tactical, I don't know if I'll be there in the long run for Battlefield 6. I don't know if I'm going to be in it for the long haul. I did miss playing a Battlefield game, and they called back to the kind of Battlefield that I like the most. I did enjoy my time in the Battlefield 6 beta, but I'm concerned. So, have my initial impressions from my reaction to the Battlefield 6 announcements and trailers and whatnot, has that changed? Nope. I'm excited, but I'm still being cautious, right? I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm excited, but I ain't jumping on the hype train just yet. Nope, we're going to have to see how things pan out at launch, and I probably won't be getting the game at launch. I'll probably get it post-launch if I get it, but I'm going to wait to see how things pan out and how the dust settles. Plus, yeah, DICE and their netcoding. Anyways, I'm very much interested in hearing your all's thoughts in the comments section down below. What did you guys think of your time in the Battlefield 6 beta? Did you get to play a lot? Did you get to play a little? What did you think of the change-ups to the classes? What did you think of the change-ups to the weapon systems? What did you think of the game in general? Are you excited? Are you not excited? Do you think that it's moving away from its original identity and becoming too much like Call of Duty and other games? Let me know in the comments section down below, and while you're down there, go ahead and hit the like button for me, share this around, and of course subscribe for more. Going to be expanding the Dirty Casual series, obviously, from this, and we're going to be taking it to Battlefield as well, if I get it when it comes out, so hope to see you guys around for that. And in the meantime, I do Friday Night Rivals, and currently I'm playing through on the hardest difficulty on Expedition 33 on Saturday mornings. Also, you'll see me play some Marvel Rivals then too. But other than that, I do want to say thank you very much for watching. Thank you for all of your watch time. Thank you for helping me turn my hobby into something more than just playing games. But most importantly, have a wonderful rest of your day.